Out of all the current events that affect our society, none have as much an impact and wide-ranging influence as the safety of our food. Year after year, new rules and guidelines from the Food and Drug Administration impact what we buy from grocery stores, what we eat at restaurants, and how to prevent infections and illness. At the same time, the number of food recalls and outbreaks has risen at an alarming rate. Cases of foodborne illness are linked to about 3,000 deaths a year. Food contamination sickens about 48 million people a year, the equivalent to 1 in 6 Americans. Food safety is a very broad subject to tackle. It involves the history of the FDA, notable recalls and outbreaks and what we've learned from them, and how to cook and prepare food safely at home. The FDA, the nation's foremost authority on food product safety, has evolved and grown for over a century into the location of information we know today. In the 19th century, the then new Department of Agriculture led to the inception of the Bureau of Chemistry, which became the Food, Drug, and Insecticide Administration, which was the immediate predecessor to the FDA. Charles Wetherell, a chemist, was assigned by President Lincoln to serve in this recently developed program. The year was 1862. The Civil War was just getting started. President Roosevelt wrote the Food and Drugs Act into law on June 30th, 1906. According to the official FDA website, this act will, quote, prohibits interstate commerce in misbranded and adulterated food, drink, and drugs. In 1930, an Agricultural Appropriations Act enables the name of the FDIA changed to the FDA. 3 years later, they suggested that the Food and Drugs Act, which was now obsolete, be reworked, which wouldn't become a reality until 1938, when the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act was enacted in Congress. Forthright and factual labels were a stipulation of the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act of 1966. These demands were placed not just on foods, but drugs, cosmetics, and medical devices as well. The Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990 is especially noteworthy to our modern times. It orders all, quote, packaged foods, unquote, to have all health declarations and descriptions, quote, be consistent with terms defined by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. A few labels, such as light and low fat, are permitted for the first time. These, plus serving sizes and food ingredient panels, are regimented. Clearer versions of nutrition labels are introduced in 1992, which now list, quote, the most important nutrients in an easy-to-follow format. First noteworthy change to nutritional labels since its initial update in 1993 came in 2003 with the introduction of trans fat content. The most significant reworking of our food safety program in 70 years was introduced on January 4, 2011, when President Obama signed the Food Safety and Modernization Act into law. This act seeks to update many guidelines which numerous experts call outdated. According to a report for the Huffington Post in July of this year, Lily Kuo states that the guidelines, quote, would establish standards for possible sources of contamination of fresh fruits and vegetables, and make importers responsible for the safety of the food they import. It would also force food companies to identify possible sources of contamination and specify actions to prevent them. Many families of loved ones who were killed by food contamination are currently seeking delayed provisions to be enacted to the bill. The first and most notable outbreak to receive national attention was the spread of E. coli on the West Coast in early 1993. WebMD describes E. coli as, quote, the name of a germ or bacterium that lives in the digestive tracts of humans and animals. There are many different kinds of E. coli. 6-year-old Lauren Rudolph was the first victim. Within days of eating at a Jack in the Box restaurant, she was suffering from bloody diarrhea and pain in the abdomen. After enduring a heart attack, she was placed in a medically induced coma. The heart attack caused damage throughout her body, but most significantly to her brain. Her life support was disconnected soon after. Her autopsy revealed that she died from hemolytic uremic syndrome, the cause of which was E. coli 015787. Within days, reports of people, mostly children, afflicted with severe E. coli poisoning emerged throughout the West Coast area. 9-year-old Brianne Kiner was afflicted but survived, however not without great cost. The infection was so damaging to her digestional tract that she had to have her colon removed.
A huge obstacle affected her recovery when she developed severe hypotension during the operation.
She was in a coma for 5 weeks thereafter. All her hair had fallen out, and her kidneys and liver suffered permanent damage. It was determined by
State and federal investigators
that improper cooking of beef patties at numerous Jack in the Box restaurants caused the outbreak. A kitchen guideline within the company stated that the safe internal cooking temperature of well-done patties is 140 degrees Fahrenheit.
According to federal government standards.
However, a state health law requires all beef patties to be cooked to an internal temperature of 155 degrees.
The corporation responded that they were unaware of such a regulation. After a court case that lasted for months, Jack in the Box agreed to pay the Kiner family $15.6 million, which was the largest personal injury award in state history.
In total, 750 children were poisoned and 4 had died by the end of the outbreak. The E. coli outbreak of 1993 was a wake-up call not only to health officials and food service companies, but also to the general public that times had changed. Previously unknown and scientific terms such as E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria have unfortunately become household terms. Citizens of all kinds, especially the elderly, the children, and their parents, have to be cautious about what they eat. Salmonella, similar to E. coli, is a, quote, gram-negative, rod-shaped bacilli that can cause diarrheal illness in humans. They are microscopic, living creatures that pass from the feces of people or animals to other people or animals. Listeria is a bacterium whose full name is Listeria monocytogenes that causes listeriosis. It is especially deadly to pregnant women and the elderly. Despite frequent government legislation via the FDA and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the rate of food contamination recalls has increased in severity in recent years. Case in point, in August of 2011, concerns over a drug-resistant strain of Salmonella led to 36 million pounds of Cargill ground turkey to be recalled. Over 30 people were killed by cantaloupes infected with Listeria. 2012 has proven to be a landmark year for the rate of outbreaks and recalls, but also new legislation to combat these hazards. New concerns of the safety of our food hasn't waned, such as Trader Joe's peanut butter that was ordered back due to a possible salmonella contamination, an alleged mass E. coli outbreak at a business picnic in Ohio that sickened 75 people and killed 1. In September, a former egg manager even pled guilty to charges that he attempted to bribe a USDA inspector at a local farm in Iowa. The easiest and most effective ways to prevent contamination can be achieved at the grocery store and in your kitchen. By following these simple but important steps, we can enjoy fresh, tasty, and wholesome meals without the risk of being infected and/or sickened. 1. Keep cold foods cold. Use common sense when planning food shopping around other errands. Remember to buy groceries last on the trip. Place foods on a plate or plastic bag to prevent leakage immediately after getting home. Then put them in the fridge or freezer. Never thaw hard foods at room temperature on a counter. The fridge or the microwave are the best options. 2. Wash hands and surfaces often. Before cooking or handling ingredients, remember to, quote, wash your hands in warm soapy water for around 10 seconds. Do the same afterwards, especially when handling raw meat. Because bacteria can grow and thrive in anything, it is especially important to keep all utensils, pans, bowls, and countertops cleaned with warm soapy water. 3. Keep hot foods hot. The proper cooking heat can kill bacteria. Fish and meat that's cooked thoroughly is essential, especially for ground beef, where a bacterium is dispersed throughout and not just on the surface. To stop bacteria growth, it is very important to keep food hot until it's presented. 4. Prevent cross-contamination. In addition to washing your hands thoroughly after touching raw food, wash the equipment, including cutting boards. Better yet, use a different cutting board for other foods, such as vegetables, to prevent the spread of bacteria. Other tips for proper food safety at home. After being placed in the fridge, raw ground meats should be prepared within 1 to 2 days of purchase. Handle meat and poultry as little as possible. Keep dairy and other highly perishable products away from the refrigerator door on an inner shelf. Canned goods are good for an extended period of time, but they do eventually expire. Do not leave perishable foods at room temperature longer than 2 hours. In conclusion, the issue of food safety is an essential and permanent part of our everyday lives. Constant education and diligence, not just for us, but for companies as well, are crucial to preventing small and widespread illness. With this in mind, in addition to critical new discoveries and insights from the FDA, dangerous outbreaks may become a thing of the past.